The night before our wedding, I caught my fiancé kissing his ex. Heartbroken and humiliated, I made a bold move. I married the city's most powerful billionaire instead. Now, as my ex watches in shock, he realizes the truth. He lost me to a man who never takes second chances. The night before my wedding, I could hardly sleep. I was lying in bed, staring at the intricate floral patterns on the ceiling of my suite at the Rosewood, the most luxurious hotel in the city. My best friend, Amara, was sprawled out on the couch, murmuring in her sleep about mismatched shoes. I couldn't help but smile at her mumbling, despite the tight knot in my stomach. It was supposed to be the happiest night of my life, but instead I felt like I was on the verge of breaking into pieces. The suite was filled with signs of tomorrow's celebration. My ivory gown, a masterpiece of lace and pearls, hung on the dress form near the window. A faint breeze stirred the soft fabric, making it look like it was breathing. The scent of fresh roses filled the room, remnants of the pre-wedding brunch with my bridesmaids. I should have been dreaming about walking down the aisle, but instead I kept thinking about Marcus. My fiancé. My almost husband. For the past week he'd been distant, distracted, his phone constantly buzzing with notifications that made him frown. I'd convinced myself it was just stress. Wedding planning, family pressure, his job. But tonight I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. A loud thud outside snapped me out of my thoughts. I glanced at Amara, but she hadn't stirred. Curiosity got the better of me, so I slipped into my silk robe and padded barefoot down the carpeted hallway to the door. When I stepped into the corridor, I noticed the elevator doors were just closing, and through the gap I saw something that made my stomach flip. Marcus, his arm around someone. Someone with long dark curls cascading down her back. A silhouette I recognized too well. Jenna. His ex. My heart pounded as I quickly stepped back into the shadows. I wasn't imagining it. They were heading toward the rooftop bar, the very place Marcus had proposed to me just 6 months ago, under the stars with a string quartet playing our favorite song. My legs felt like lead, but I forced myself to follow. As I reached the top floor, the muted hum of city nightlife greeted me. The glass doors to the rooftop bar were slightly ajar. I crept closer, my pulse loud in my ears. There they were, Marcus and Jenna, standing at the far end of the terrace, framed by the city lights. I pressed my back against the wall, my heart threatening to burst. Jenna was leaning into him, her hand on his chest, and then she kissed him. My entire world seemed to collapse in that moment. The night air felt colder, sharper, slicing through the last bit of hope I had clung to. I didn't confront them. I couldn't. Instead, I hurried back to my suite, barely keeping it together. When I got inside, Amara was awake, stretching groggily. One look at my face, and her expression changed from sleepy to concerned. "What happened?" she asked, pulling me into a hug. "He's with Jenna," I whispered, choking on the words. Amara stiffened, then pulled back to look at me. "What do you mean, with her?" "I saw them. On the rooftop. Kissing." Her face contorted with anger. "That thug. I knew something was off about him lately. How could he do this the night before your wedding? You're too good for him, Sophie. Way too good." I sank onto the couch, burying my face in my hands. What am I supposed to do? The wedding is tomorrow. My whole family is here. His family. All our friends. Amara sat beside me, gripping my hand. "You're not going through with it, right? You can't marry him after this." I looked at her, tears welling up again. "But what will people say? Everyone's going to think I did something wrong." "Who cares what they think? You deserve better. You deserve someone who loves you, not someone who kisses his ex the night before the wedding." The room fell silent. I felt numb. Betrayed. I thought of all the moments Marcus and I had shared, all the plans we had made. I thought of the first time he said he loved me, the way he had looked at me like I was the only woman in the world. I had been so blind. Amara's phone buzzed and she glanced at the screen. Her eyes widened. "What is it?" I asked, dreading more bad news. "Isn't that Damien Blackwood downstairs?" she whispered, excitement lighting up her face. I frowned, confused. "Who?" "You know, the billionaire. He owns half the city. He's at the hotel for some business conference. Sophie, he's like the most eligible bachelor in the country." I barely paid attention. What did it matter? I was supposed to be married tomorrow and my heart was in pieces. But Amara wasn't giving up. "I know this sounds crazy, but what if—" She hesitated, then continued with a mischievous glint in her eye. "What if you show Marcus you don't need him? Let's go down there just for a drink. Maybe being seen with someone like Damien will make him realize what he's losing. Sounded absurd. Outrageous. But the thought of Marcus seeing me, confident and unaffected, made something inside me spark to life. You're insane, I muttered, but Amara just grinned and pulled me to my feet. Insanely brilliant, she corrected. Come on. Let's make him regret it. Amara dragged me to the lobby bar where the air was thick with excitement. Sure enough, Damien Blackwood was there, surrounded by a small crowd of business associates. He was even more handsome in person, tall and composed, his presence commanding the room. As we approached, his eyes flicked toward us, and for a second I thought I saw a hint of curiosity. I felt my cheeks warm, suddenly aware of how disheveled I looked. But before I could back out, Amara was whispering something to his assistant. To my utter shock, Damien turned and walked over, a polite, enigmatic smile on his lips. Hi, he said, his voice a deep, velvety drawl. I heard you wanted to meet me. Amara nudged me forward. Yes, this is my friend Sophie. She's having a bit of a rough night. I wanted to die of embarrassment, but Damien just looked at me, his gaze calm and understanding. Sometimes rough nights lead to unexpected opportunities, he said softly. Maybe it was the exhaustion or the hurt or just the desire to feel like myself again, but I found myself smiling back. Yes, I replied, almost in a whisper. Maybe they do. And as Damien offered me a seat beside him, I realized that for the first time that night, I didn't feel quite so broken. Sitting beside Damien Blackwood at the bar felt like stepping into another world. The plush velvet seat beneath me and the sparkling chandelier overhead were surreal. The contrast between his calm, composed demeanor and my rattled, confused state made me feel out of place. Yet there was something about the way he listened to me, even though I hadn't said much, that put me at ease. Amara ordered drinks, her eyes darting between us like a mother hen, making sure everything was just right. Damien noticed and smirked slightly. You have quite the loyal friend, he commented, his voice smooth and confident. Amara's always been protective, I replied, glancing at her. Sometimes a little too much. Damien gave a low chuckle and I couldn't help but smile. He had this effortless way of drawing people in. His presence was magnetic. So, he began, turning his full attention to me, why is your night so rough? The question hung in the air. I hesitated, unsure whether I wanted to spill my heartbreak to a complete stranger, especially one as intimidatingly powerful as Damien. Before I could decide, Amara, never one to hold back, leaned in. Her fiancé was just caught kissing his ex. The night before their wedding. I shot her a glare, but it was too late. Damien's expression didn't change, but I thought I saw a flicker of surprise. Or was it sympathy? That's unfortunate, he said simply. Some men don't realize the value of what they have until it's gone. His words struck a chord. I felt my throat tighten, but I forced a smile. It's just embarrassing, I whispered. Tomorrow was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Damien watched me with an intensity that made me feel seen. Truly seen. I didn't know why, but I found myself wanting to keep talking. Can I ask you something, Sophie? He said, leaning slightly closer. I nodded, captivated. If you could do anything right now, anything at all, what would it be? The question took me by surprise. I hadn't thought about what I wanted, not since seeing Marcus with Jenna. My first instinct was to say I wanted to go back in time, to erase the pain, to still believe in my love story. But that wasn't realistic. I'd want to make him regret it, I said finally, the words slipping out before I could think. I want him to know I'm not someone he can just walk away from. Damien's lips curved into a faint smile. Revenge through happiness. I like that. Just as I was beginning to feel a strange sense of calm, a commotion erupted at the entrance. Marcus. He was there, looking panicked, scanning the room. My heart pounded and I instinctively leaned back, hoping he wouldn't notice me. But Damien must have sensed my discomfort. He reached for my hand and intertwined his fingers with mine, holding it gently yet firmly. I looked up, startled. He's coming this way, Damien whispered, his tone reassuring. Do you trust me? I didn't have time to think. Yes, I breathed out, surprising even myself. Marcus spotted me, his eyes widening when he saw Damien by my side. His jaw clenched and he hurried over, ignoring the curious glances from other guests. Sophie, what the hell is this? Marcus demanded, his voice low but heated. I opened my mouth to respond, but Damien spoke first, his tone cool and authoritative. "She's enjoying her evening," he said without breaking eye contact with Marcus. "I'd advise you not to interrupt." Marcus looked baffled, his gaze darting between us. "You can't be serious. Sophie, come on. Let's talk. Alone." I hesitated, but Damien squeezed my hand slightly, grounding me. "There's nothing to discuss, Marcus," I replied, my voice surprisingly steady. "Go back to Jenna. I'm sure she's waiting for you." Marcus scoffed, clearly frustrated. "This isn't like you. You don't just move on like this." I wanted to scream that I wasn't moving on. I was still hurt, still angry. But I couldn't let him see that. Not now. Damien finally stood, his towering presence making Marcus take a step back. "You've made your choice," Damien stated, his voice dropping an octave. "Now live with it." Marcus's face contorted with anger. "Who the hell are you?" Damien smiled, cold, calculated. "Damien Blackwood. Perhaps you've heard of me." Marcus paled. Everyone in the city knew Damien. Marcus wasn't used to being the lesser man in any room, but against Damien he looked almost insignificant. I didn't know," Marcus stammered, clearly thrown off. "You didn't know because you never bothered to look past your own arrogance," Damien replied smoothly. Marcus looked at me one last time, his eyes pleading. "Sophie, please. Let's just talk." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the last few hours crashing down on me. But instead of giving in, I squeezed Damien's hand and looked Marcus straight in the eye. "No," I said firmly. "We have nothing to talk about." Defeated, Marcus finally turned and walked away, his shoulders slumped. I watched him go, trying to reconcile the love I thought I had with the reality of what he'd done. Damien's hand remained warm in mine. When Marcus was out of sight, I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. "You didn't have to do that," I whispered. He released my hand gently, his expression softening. "Sometimes people need a little help standing up for themselves." I looked up at him, unsure how to express my gratitude. "Thank you." He glanced at me with a rare, almost boyish smile. "You owe me a dance now." Before I could respond, he pulled me onto the dance floor. The music was slow and I let him guide me, my body moving almost on autopilot. I was exhausted, emotionally drained, but somehow being in his arms felt safe. "Why did you help me?" I asked softly. His eyes darkened with a hint of mystery. "Because you looked like you deserved better." As we swayed to the music, I couldn't help but wonder what kind of man Damien really was. Billionaire, enigmatic, and entirely too charming for his own good. And somehow tonight he'd become my unexpected savior. I rested my head on his shoulder, too tired to keep up appearances. For a moment I let myself forget about Marcus, Jenna, and the wedding that would never happen. And for the first time in days I felt like I could breathe. The rest of the night passed in a blur. Damien didn't push me to talk, didn't pry into my heartbreak. Instead he just stayed by my side, occasionally brushing his hand against mine as if reminding me I wasn't alone. The rooftop bar buzzed with conversations, but for me time seemed to slow down. When the crowd thinned out, Damien suggested we move to the quieter lounge area. I hesitated, but his calm, steady presence made it hard to refuse. Amara gave me a thumbs up from across the room, clearly thrilled by the unexpected turn of events. As we settled into the plush leather seats, Damien ordered a bottle of the hotel's finest champagne. I couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. "Celebrating something?" I asked, half joking. He looked at me thoughtfully. "Sometimes it's good to mark the beginning of something new, even if it doesn't feel like it yet." I bit my lip, unsure how to respond. His words made sense, but I still felt raw and bruised. "So," Damien began, leaning back comfortably, "what was your plan before everything fell apart?" I smiled ruefully. "To marry Marcus and live happily ever after." He gave a slight nod as if calculating something. "And now?" I took a deep breath. "Now, I just want to feel like myself again. I want to remember who I was before I got so wrapped up in him." Damien's eyes softened. "It's easy to lose yourself when you're giving too much to someone else." His insight surprised me. "You sound like you've been through this before." He chuckled, a low, rich sound that made my heart flutter. "Not exactly. But I've seen it happen. People build their worlds around someone who doesn't deserve it." His words made me feel seen, understood. I couldn't help but wonder why someone like him, wealthy, powerful, always in control, seemed so in tune with emotions I could barely understand myself. As the night wore on, Damien shared snippets of his life, growing up in a world of privilege but never quite fitting in. His parents had passed away when he was young, leaving him with an empire to run. The pressure was immense, but he had learned to thrive in it. "It must be lonely," I murmured. He gave me a long, searching look. "Sometimes. But I don't let it get to me. I've learned that the right people find their way to you when you least expect it." His words lingered in the air and I felt a strange warmth in my chest. The way he looked at me like I was someone worth protecting was so different from how Marcus had treated me recently. Before I could respond, Damien's assistant, a poised woman named Lydia, approached us, whispering something into his ear. He nodded and then turned back to me. "There's an event downstairs, one I'm expected to attend. I'd like you to come with me," he said, his tone casual but his eyes intense. I blinked, caught off guard. "Me?" "Yes. As my date," he clarified. A mixture of panic and excitement flooded through me. "But I'm not dressed for it. I'm in a bathrobe and slippers." He smiled, unbothered. "I'll take care of it. Trust me." 20 minutes later, I found myself whisked into one of the hotel's private boutiques. Lydia arranged for a selection of gowns, and before I knew it, I was stepping into a deep emerald dress that hugged my figure perfectly. My hair was styled in loose waves and light makeup brightened my tired face. When I finally looked in the mirror, I hardly recognized myself. I looked regal, confident, like someone who wasn't broken by betrayal. Damien waited outside the boutique, his eyes widening slightly when he saw me. For a moment, I thought I saw admiration in his expression, but it was gone before I could be sure. "You look beautiful," he said simply, offering his arm. The event was an elegant charity gala held in one of the hotel's grand ballrooms. As we entered, heads turned, whispers flowing like a ripple through the crowd. I could feel people's eyes on me, but with Damien by my side, I didn't feel exposed. I felt powerful. He introduced me to several business associates, and I surprised myself by holding my own in conversations. Damien would occasionally glance my way, a hint of pride in his eyes. I wasn't sure what I was doing, but it felt right. Being here, being seen, not hiding away in pain. At one point, as we took a break near the balcony, I couldn't help but ask, "Why are you doing this?" Damien looked at me, his gaze unwavering. "Because you deserve better than what you were given. And because I want to." His words sent a shiver down my spine. No one had ever looked at me like that before, like I was worth fighting for. As the evening progressed, I became more aware of Marcus lurking on the periphery of the event. His eyes were glued to us, jealousy and confusion etched into his face. I could almost feel his frustration, knowing I wasn't heartbroken and alone but instead standing beside one of the most powerful men in the city. Just as the night seemed to settle into a pleasant rhythm, Marcus approached, clearly agitated. "Sophie, can we talk?" he demanded, ignoring Damien entirely. Damien stepped forward, but I placed a hand on his arm, signaling that I would handle it. I faced Marcus head-on, not willing to let him see how much he still affected me. "There's nothing left to say," I replied calmly. He looked desperate. "You're really just moving on? With him?" I glanced at Damien, who gave me a reassuring nod. I took a deep breath. "You made your choice, Marcus. Now I'm making mine." He seemed at a loss, running a hand through his hair. "You can't seriously think he cares about you. He's just using you to make a statement." Damien's eyes hardened, but I spoke before he could. "And what were you doing with Jenna? Was that love? Or just an old flame you couldn't resist? You don't get to question my choices anymore." Marcus opened his mouth to argue, but Damien stepped in, his voice low and firm. "You had your chance. Don't make this worse for yourself." Defeated, Marcus stormed off, leaving me trembling slightly. Damien squeezed my hand, guiding me away from the stairs. When we reached a quieter corner, he turned to me, concern evident in his expression. "Are you all right?" I nodded, though I felt like I might collapse from the tension. I just never thought I'd see him look like that. Like he actually regretted it. Damien gave a small, almost triumphant smile. "He'll regret it even more once he realizes you've moved on. Sometimes the best revenge is to live well." For the first time in a long while, I felt a spark of hope. Maybe Damien was right. Maybe the way to reclaim myself wasn't through confrontation or making Marcus suffer. It was by building a life where his betrayal no longer defined me. As the gala continued, I found myself laughing at Damien's dry humor and enjoying the way he made me feel wanted. I couldn't help but wonder, was this the beginning of something unexpected? Or just a fleeting escape from heartbreak? Only time would tell, but for now, being by Damien's side felt like the most unexpected and comforting decision I had made in a long time. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the hotel suite's expansive windows, bathing the room in a warm, golden glow. I stirred, feeling the softness of the bed beneath me, and for a moment I forgot where I was. The events of the previous night flooded back. Marcus's betrayal, Damien's unexpected kindness, the charity gala. I glanced to my side and found Amara curled up in a nearby armchair, snoring softly, a blanket draped over her. She must have stayed to make sure I was okay. I smiled despite the ache still present in my chest. A light knock on the door startled me. I pulled the covers up instinctively as Amara stirred awake, looking as groggy as I felt. "Who is it?" I called, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "It's Damien," came the familiar, soothing voice from the other side. Amara shot me a look of pure mischief before bouncing up to open the door. Damien stepped in, looking as put together as ever in a tailored suit. He held a tray of breakfast, croissants, fruit, and coffee. "I thought you might need some sustenance," he said with a faint smile. "Wow," Amara muttered under her breath, flashing me a thumbs up as she slipped into the bathroom, giving us some space. "Thank you," I managed to say, feeling a little shy under his intense gaze. Damien placed the tray on the small table by the window. "How are you feeling?" I hesitated, not wanting to lie. "Still processing. But better, I think." He nodded, his eyes never leaving mine. "I was worried about you last night. You handled everything with more grace than most would." I let out a bitter laugh. "Grace?" I felt like I was falling apart. He took a seat across from me, his posture relaxed. "That's part of being human. You didn't let it consume you, though. That's what matters." His words brought a strange comfort, and I sipped the coffee he handed me, savoring the warmth. We sat in companionable silence for a while, and just when I thought the conversation had settled, Damien cleared his throat. "I wanted to talk to you about something," he began cautiously. I raised an eyebrow. "Sounds serious." He gave a small, almost sheepish smile. "In a way it is. Last night, seeing how Marcus reacted when he thought you'd moved on, it gave me an idea." I frowned, not sure where he was going with this. "An idea?" He leaned forward, his expression earnest. "You're not the only one who has something to gain from this situation. My company is on the verge of a major merger, and the board has been pressuring me to appear more stable. Married." My mouth went dry. "Married?" He nodded, a glint of something unreadable in his eyes. "You and I both have something to prove. You need to show Marcus that you're stronger without him, and I need to present an image of commitment and stability." I blinked, completely thrown off. "You're suggesting we, what? Fake a relationship?" Damien's lips curved into a smile. "More than that. A fake marriage. Temporary, of course. Just long enough to silence the board and make your ex realize what he lost." My mind was spinning. "You're serious?" "Very," he confirmed. "Think about it. You'd have time to get your life back in order without Marcus constantly lurking around, and I'd get the stability my company requires. It's mutually beneficial." Amara emerged from the bathroom just in time to catch the tail end of the conversation. "Wait, did I hear the word marriage?" she asked, eyes wide. I looked at her, still processing. "Damien is suggesting we pretend to be married. Temporarily." Amara's mouth dropped open, then she broke into a wide grin. "Are you kidding me? That's genius." I shot her a glare, but she was too thrilled to notice. "Think about it, Soph. This would totally put Marcus in his place. And you get to live like a queen for a while." Damien chuckled, clearly amused by her enthusiasm. "But it's crazy," I argued, still trying to make sense of it. "What about the fallout? What happens when it ends?" Damien's expression grew serious. "I'll make sure you're protected. A contract. Clear terms. You walk away with no damage to your reputation, and I'll make sure you're financially secure during the arrangement." I looked between him and Amara, my mind racing. Could I really do this? Pretend to be married to a man I barely knew just to spite Marcus and save Damien's image? Before I could answer, Amara piped up. "Sophie, this is your chance. You don't just get revenge, You get to start over on your own terms. Plus, it's Damian Blackwood. You'd be insane to say no. Damian looked at me, waiting patiently for my response. I swallowed hard, weighing my options. My entire life had been flipped upside down, and here was a chance to regain some control. Finally I spoke. Hey, I'll do it. But I have conditions. Damian's eyes glinted with intrigue. Name them. 1, I began, trying to sound more confident than I felt. We keep it strictly business. No personal entanglements. He nodded, unfazed. 2, I get to choose how public we make it. I don't want to look like I'm flaunting it just to hurt Marcus. It needs to look genuine. That's fair, he agreed. And 3, we set a clear end date. I don't want to get caught in something I can't walk away from. Damian smiled, clearly impressed. You drive a hard bargain. But I accept. Amara squealed, clapping her hands. This is going to be epic. Within an hour, Damian's legal team had drawn up a contract. I read through it carefully, and to his credit, Damian had covered all the bases. Financial security, privacy clauses, and most importantly, a clear timeline. 6 months. Long enough to convince the board and long enough for me to heal. When I finally signed the contract, Damian extended his hand, his eyes glinting with satisfaction. To new beginnings. I shook his hand, trying not to think about how firm and warm it was. To new beginnings. As I pulled my hand away, I couldn't help but wonder how real this fake marriage would end up feeling. Later that night, as I lay in the suite alone, reality settled over me. I was about to become Mrs. Damian Blackwood, even if just temporarily. A part of me was terrified, but another part, the part that had been broken and humiliated, felt empowered. Marcus had taken so much from me. My confidence, my dreams, my sense of self. Maybe this arrangement wasn't just about revenge. Maybe it was about rediscovering who I was before I became someone else's shadow. As sleep finally claimed me, I couldn't help but smile, imagining Marcus's reaction when he found out. He had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing incessantly. I groggily reached over to check, only to find dozens of messages from friends and family. Amara was already up, scrolling through her own phone with wide eyes. Sophie, you're trending, she announced, unable to contain her excitement. What? I mumbled, still trying to wake up. She handed me her phone, and there it was. Photos from the charity gala last night. Damian and I dancing, holding hands, him looking at me like I was the only woman in the room. The headlines ranged from Damian Blackwood's new mystery woman to who is the lucky bride-to-be? I felt a rush of anxiety. This is moving way too fast. Amara grinned. It's perfect. Marcus is probably losing his mind right now. Just as I processed that thought, Damian knocked and entered the suite, his presence commanding as always. He held a newspaper with a similar headline, his expression calm. Good morning, he greeted, handing me the paper. This is a lot, I admitted, glancing at the photos. He nodded. I expected it. The press loves a good story, especially when it involves me. But it works in our favor. It makes the engagement more believable. I bit my lip, nerves fluttering in my stomach. Engagement. He looked at me like it was the most obvious thing in the world. If we're going to be married by the end of the week, we need to make the engagement public first. Amara practically bounced on the bed. Are you serious? You're getting married in a week. Damian nodded. The sooner the better. My board meeting is next Friday. The wedding will put any doubts to rest. I couldn't help but feel like I was being swept along in a tidal wave. You're sure about this? I asked, half hoping he'd change his mind. Damian gave me a reassuring smile. Trust me. You'll be protected. I'll make sure of it. Amara leaned closer, whispering, You got this. You're stronger than you think. That afternoon, Damian's PR team crafted a perfect announcement. Business mogul Damian Blackwood has found love. He is thrilled to announce his engagement to Sophie Turner, a talented designer and entrepreneur. The statement was elegant, believable, and just vague enough to fuel public interest. Within hours, congratulatory messages started pouring in. While the world buzzed about the sudden engagement, I sat with Damian in his private lounge, feeling more overwhelmed than ever. People are going to ask why it's happening so fast, I murmured. He didn't seem fazed. We'll say it was love at first sight. An instant connection. I'm known for making swift decisions in business. Why not in my personal life? I couldn't help but chuckle at that. You make it sound easy. His gaze softened. I'll make it easy for you. There was something in his voice, gentle but firm, that made me believe him. Of course, the news didn't sit well with everyone. My mother called immediately, half crying, half yelling about how I had kept such a huge secret from her. Engaged. To a billionaire. Sophie, why didn't you tell us you were even dating? I tried to calm her down. Mom, it all happened really fast. I didn't know how to explain it. She sighed, her excitement taking over her worry. Well, at least you're happy. You deserve to be loved and cherished. I didn't expect this. Neither did I, but I kept that to myself. Damien, on the other hand, didn't seem bothered by his own family's reactions, or lack thereof. As we planned the wedding logistics, I noticed how easily he dismissed the idea of inviting relatives. You don't want family there? I asked one evening. He shrugged. I don't have much of one left. My parents passed when I was young. The rest of the family is more interested in the company than in me. They'll see the news and probably send polite messages, but they won't show up. I felt a pang of sympathy, but he didn't seem upset. It was just a fact of his life. On the third day, while finalizing the guest list with Amara, my phone buzzed. Marcus. I hesitated before answering, but curiosity got the better of me. What do you want? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. His voice was thick with frustration. You can't be serious, Sophie. Engaged. To him. It's not your business anymore, I replied, hating how his words still stung. You're doing this to hurt me, aren't you? He accused. I let out a bitter laugh. You think everything is about you. Maybe this is just about me wanting more for myself. He fell silent, clearly not expecting that answer. Sophie, I made a mistake. I know that now. Please just talk to me. We can work this out. A wave of anger surged through me. Work this out. You made your choice. You kissed Jenna the night before our wedding. You don't get to come back now just because I've moved on. You don't love him, he whispered. I don't love you anymore either, I shot back before hanging up. My hands shook, but I felt an odd sense of liberation. That evening, Damien found me on the terrace, staring out at the city lights. I must have looked lost because he came over and gently touched my shoulder. Rough day? He asked. I nodded. Marcus called. Tried to say I'm doing this just to spite him. Damien's expression hardened. That man doesn't deserve your thoughts. Or your tears. He pulled out a small velvet box from his pocket. I stared at it, confused. What's this? A ring, he replied almost shyly. If we're going to make this believable, we need to make it official. Besides, he hesitated, his eyes softer than I'd ever seen. You deserve something beautiful. He opened the box, revealing a stunning diamond set in a delicate platinum band. It sparkled like a constellation, elegant and understated. I was speechless. Damien, this is. He took my hand and slipped the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly. His voice was quiet, almost vulnerable. You don't have to wear it if it's too much. But I wanted you to have it. Not because of the arrangement, but because you should feel valued. Tears stung my eyes, but I managed to smile. Thank you. It's beautiful. We stood there, his hand warm over mine, and for the first time the line between real and pretend felt blurry. As the night deepened, I couldn't help but wonder if this temporary marriage was already becoming something more. The way Damien looked at me, the way he made me feel worthy again. It was dangerous. But for now, I let myself savor the moment, the city lights reflecting off the ring that symbolized a second chance. Not just at love, but at finding myself again. The next few days were a whirlwind of preparations. Damien's team worked tirelessly to arrange a wedding that would be both grand and private. Exclusive yet stunning enough to make headlines. I found myself swept into the chaos of gown fittings, floral arrangements and media strategy meetings. Surprisingly, Damien was involved in every detail. I half expected him to be too busy running his empire, but instead he took time to approve designs, taste cakes and even debate color schemes. One evening, while choosing the floral arrangements, I couldn't help but ask, "Why are you so invested in the details?" He looked at me thoughtfully. "If we're doing this, we should do it right. Besides, I know how important it is for you to feel in control after what you've been through." His words hit deeper than I wanted to admit. I nodded, appreciating his thoughtfulness. Amara and I went dress shopping together, Something that should have been done weeks ago if my original wedding plans hadn't collapsed. This time, however, I wasn't looking for a traditional gown. I wanted something different, something that spoke of confidence and transformation. When I tried on a sleek off-the-shoulder satin dress with an elegant train, Amara's jaw dropped. "That's it," she whispered. "It's fierce. Sophisticated. You look like a queen." I turned to the mirror and for the first time in weeks, I didn't see the broken woman Marcus had left behind. I saw someone stronger. Someone who refused to be defined by betrayal. Amara snapped a few pictures insisting I send one to Damien. I hesitated but she texted it before I could protest. Moments later my phone chimed. "Damien, stunning. You look like you could conquer the world." I couldn't help but smile. That evening, Damien invited me to his penthouse suite to discuss the final details. When I arrived he was standing on the balcony, the city skyline glowing behind him. He turned, his eyes softening when he saw me. "You're early." I shrugged. Amara was too excited to let me sit still. He gestured for me to join him on the balcony. "I wanted to discuss how we're handling the ceremony. The media coverage needs to be carefully controlled. I don't want them prying too much into your life." I appreciated his protectiveness. "I trust your judgment. I just don't want to feel like I'm losing myself in all of this." He nodded, his gaze intense. "You won't. This is your choice as much as mine." I leaned on the railing, taking in the breathtaking view. "You keep saying that, about choices. But why did you choose me? Out of all the women who would have gladly played your wife for 6 months. Damien seemed to consider his words carefully. "Because you're genuine. You didn't try to impress me or manipulate me. You were real. And I respect that." Something tightened in my chest. I hadn't expected such honesty. Before I could respond his phone rang, breaking the moment. He glanced at the screen and frowned. "It's the board. I have to take this." I stepped back, giving him space, but couldn't help overhearing his firm, controlled tone as he assured them that the marriage would be official by the weekend. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything. Marcus's betrayal, Damien's kindness, and this unexpected journey I had thrown myself into. Just as I was about to surrender to my tangled thoughts, my phone buzzed. "Damien, meet me downstairs. I have something to show you." Curiosity piqued, I slipped on a coat over my nightdress and made my way to the lobby. Damien was waiting by the entrance, his car idling at the curb. He opened the door for me and without a word, we drove through the quiet city streets. Finally, we stopped at a private park overlooking the river. The city lights shimmered on the water and the air was crisp and cool. Damien led me to a secluded bench, where he had set up a small lantern and a picnic basket. "What is this?" I asked, stunned. He gave me a rare boyish smile. "You've been overwhelmed. I thought you could use a break from all the planning." I sank onto the bench, touched by the gesture. "You didn't have to do this." He sat beside me, pouring hot chocolate from a thermos. I wanted to. We sat in comfortable silence, sipping cocoa and watching the river. Eventually I spoke. "You know, you never told me why you don't date. Someone like you must have women lining up." Damien smirked. "You think I'm irresistible?" I rolled my eyes. "Don't push your luck." He sobered, his eyes fixed on the water. "I don't date because I don't trust easily. My family was always after money, power. Love was never unconditional. I learned early on that people wanted me for what I could give, not who I am." My heart ached for him. "That sounds lonely." He glanced at me, his gaze unexpectedly vulnerable. "It was. Until you." I froze, unsure how to respond. He looked at me like he had just realized something monumental. Before I could process it, he cleared his throat. "I didn't mean to make this heavy. I just wanted you to know that I respect you. No matter what happens tomorrow or after." I couldn't help the warmth that spread through me. "Thank you. For everything." The next morning, the hotel buzzed with energy. Stylists, planners, and media coordinators filled the suite. Amara was running around making sure everything was perfect. As I slipped into my gown, I couldn't shake the mix of nerves and excitement. Was I really doing this? Amara squeezed my hand. "You look breathtaking." "He's going to lose it when he sees you." When the ceremony began, I waited in the grand hall's antechamber. The soft strains of a violin played in the background. When the doors opened and I stepped in, I saw him at the end of the aisle, tall, composed, but his eyes softened when he saw me. Damien looked almost in awe. As I walked toward him, I noticed the way his posture relaxed, his shoulders easing as if my presence calmed him. When I reached him, he took my hands, his touch grounding me. The officiant began and I barely heard the words. Only the warmth of Damien's hands and the way he looked at me like I was something precious. When it came time for the vows, Damien spoke quietly but with certainty. I promise to stand by you, protect you and respect you. In this arrangement and beyond, I will never let you feel alone. My breath caught and for a moment I forgot the whole reason behind this marriage. I just saw him, the man who made me feel safe and worthy again. When he slipped the ring onto my finger, I couldn't help the tears that welled up. And when the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, Damien leaned down and kissed me softly. It wasn't a kiss of show. It was gentle, deliberate, and full of a promise I couldn't yet understand. As applause filled the room, I knew something had changed between us. What had started as a plan for revenge and protection was slowly transforming into something neither of us had anticipated. And in that moment I couldn't help but wonder, was I falling for him? The wedding reception was an elegant affair, held in the hotel's grand ballroom. Chandeliers glittered above us, and the soft murmur of conversations filled the space. Damien had spared no expense. Classic white roses adorned every table, a live band played soft jazz, and waiters moved gracefully with trays of champagne. As we entered the hall as newlyweds, a wave of applause washed over us. Damien's hand remained at the small of my back, guiding me through the crowd. I tried to keep my breathing steady, but the reality of it all was sinking in. I was married. To Damien Blackwood. We moved to the center of the dance floor and the band struck up a slow waltz. Damien took my hand and pulled me close, his other hand settling on my waist. "You're shaking," he whispered. I forced a smile. "It's just overwhelming." His gaze softened and he tightened his hold, guiding me through the dance with effortless grace. "You're doing beautifully. Just breathe." As the room faded away, I focused on him. The subtle scent of his cologne, the firm warmth of his hand, the way his eyes stayed locked on mine. For a moment it felt real, like we were just two people in love lost in each other. Halfway through the dance I spotted a familiar face lurking near the bar. Marcus. My heart clenched, but I refused to let panic take over. Damien noticed my distraction and followed my gaze. His jaw tightened. "Do you want me to handle him?" I shook my head. "No. I'll deal with it." Damien hesitated but eventually nodded. "I'll be nearby." Steeling myself, I approached Marcus, who looked disheveled, his tie undone and his eyes bloodshot. "Sophie," he called out, his voice laced with desperation. Kept my tone even. "You shouldn't be here." He scoffed, running a hand through his hair. "So this is real? You married him?" "Yes," I replied firmly. He looked at me bewildered. "Do you love him?" The question hit harder than I expected. I didn't answer right away and he seized the opportunity to step closer. "You don't, do you?" Marcus pressed. "You're just doing this to hurt me." I looked at him, taking in his messy appearance, the regret etched on his face. "You have no right to question me. You lost that privilege when you kissed Jenna the night before our wedding." He looked down, shame flickering across his face. "It was a mistake. I was confused. But seeing you with him, it's killing me, Sophie." I felt a pang of old pain, but I didn't let it show. "You killed us long before this. I'm just picking up the pieces." Marcus grabbed my hand, desperation bleeding into his touch. "Please don't do this. I know I messed up, but I can't lose you." I pulled my hand free, my voice steady. "You already did." Before Marcus could say more, Damien appeared at my side, his presence like a shield. He didn't say a word, just looked at Marcus with a quiet, unyielding intensity. Marcus backed off, mumbling something incoherent before slipping away into the crowd. Damien placed a hand on my shoulder. "Are you all right?" I nodded, though my heart was still pounding. "I'm fine. Thank you for stepping in." His hand lingered a moment longer before dropping. "You don't owe him anything. Remember that." Later that evening, as the guests began to dwindle, Damien led me to the balcony overlooking the city. The night air was cool and the city lights stretched out endlessly. He handed me a glass of champagne and we stood in silence, letting the quiet settle between us. "Are you regretting this?" he asked suddenly, his voice low. I looked at him, surprised by the vulnerability in his tone. "No. I'm just still processing. He nodded as if understanding all the things I couldn't put into words. After a long pause, I asked, "Have you ever been in love?" He looked out at the city, his expression distant. "Once. A long time ago. But it wasn't the kind of love that lasted." I wanted to ask more, but the sadness in his voice made me hesitate. Instead, I placed my hand over his. "You deserve to be happy too, Damien." He glanced at our intertwined fingers and gave me a small, almost hesitant smile. "You make me forget that I'm supposed to be heartless." I couldn't help but laugh. "You're not heartless. Just guarded." He looked at me, his eyes softer than I'd ever seen. "With you, I don't want to be." The confession hung between us, heavy with meaning. I felt a warmth spread through me, and before I could second-guess myself, I leaned in and kissed him, soft, tentative, but full of the emotion I hadn't dared to admit. He responded gently, his hand coming up to cup my face, his thumb brushing my cheek. When we finally pulled apart, I was breathless. "This wasn't part of the plan," I whispered. "No," he agreed, his forehead resting against mine. "But some plans are meant to change." The next morning I woke up to the sound of soft knocking. Damien was already dressed, looking far too put together for someone who had barely slept. "There's something you should see," he said, handing me his phone. I sat up, blinking at the screen. It was a news article. "Damien Blackwood's new bride. Real love or strategic move?" My stomach sank. "They think it's a publicity stunt?" Damien sat beside me. "It's expected. Some people will always question. But if we handle this carefully, they'll move on." I looked at him, searching for reassurance. What if they dig deeper? What if they find out it's all fake? He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "Let them question. As long as we present a united front, they can speculate all they want." I hesitated, still feeling uncertain. What if this becomes too much? He took my hand, squeezing it gently. "If it does, we'll handle it together. You're not alone in this." His words settled something inside me. Maybe I had started this journey for the wrong reasons, to prove a point, to heal my pride. But now, with Damien beside me, I wondered if it could be more than just a business arrangement. Could it be the beginning of something real? As I looked at him, the answer didn't feel as impossible as it once had. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I was moving toward something good, something I hadn't dared to dream about before. And with Damien's hand in mine, I was willing to take that risk. The days following our wedding were a whirlwind of media appearances, corporate meetings, and carefully orchestrated public outings. Damien and I maintained a united front, posing for photos, holding hands in public, and making every effort to look like a blissfully happy couple. But it wasn't all pretense. Behind closed doors, the lines between our fake marriage and real feelings began to blur. The way Damien would touch my back lightly as we walked, how his hand would linger on mine just a bit too long, and the way his eyes softened when he thought I wasn't looking, it was becoming harder to remember what was real and what was staged. One evening, after a particularly exhausting charity event, we finally had a quiet moment alone in our shared penthouse suite. I slipped out of my heels and sank onto the couch, grateful to be away from the scrutiny. Damien sat beside me, rolling up his sleeves, revealing his toned forearms. "Tired?" he asked, his voice soft. I leaned back and closed my eyes. "Exhausted. Pretending to be in love is surprisingly draining." He didn't respond immediately, and when I opened my eyes, I found him watching me intently. "What if it wasn't pretend?" he asked, almost too quietly. I froze, unsure of how to respond. "Damien." He leaned forward, his gaze unwavering. "I know what we agreed on, Sophie. But it's been different lately. You feel it too, don't you?" My heart pounded and I struggled to find my voice. I don't know. Everything's happened so fast. I don't even know what's real anymore." He reached out and took my hand, his thumb brushing over my knuckles. "This is real. The way you make me feel, like I can breathe for the first time in years. It's not just for the cameras." I swallowed hard, feeling a surge of emotions. "You deserve someone who loves you for who you are, not for what you can offer." And He cut me off, his lips capturing mine in a slow, deliberate kiss. I melted into him, my hands moving to his chest, feeling his heartbeat beneath my fingertips. When we finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine. "I don't need perfection, Sophie. I just need you," he whispered. The next morning I woke up tangled in Damien's arms, the early light streaming through the windows. For the first time in a long while I felt safe, like the chaos of my life had finally settled into something steady. But reality hit hard when Damien's assistant Lydia knocked on the door, her expression serious. "We have a problem," she said, handing Damien a tablet. I leaned over to see and my stomach dropped. An article from a major gossip site blared. "Damien Blackwood's marriage a hoax? Anonymous source claims it's all for business." Damien's jaw tightened. Who would leak this? Lydia hesitated. We traced the tip. It came from Marcus. Anger surged through me. He's trying to ruin this for both of us. Damien placed a calming hand on my shoulder. We'll handle it, but we need to address it before it spirals out of control. That evening, Damien arranged a live interview on one of the most reputable news networks. He insisted we address the rumors head-on with me by his side. Sitting under the bright studio lights, my hands trembled, but Damien squeezed my hand reassuringly. The interviewer, a stern-faced woman named Maria, didn't waste time. "Mr. Blackwood, there have been allegations that your marriage to Sophie is a strategic move, more of a business arrangement than a romantic commitment. Can you comment on that?" Damien didn't flinch. "Our relationship may have started unexpectedly, but it's real. Sophie has become an essential part of my life, not just as my wife but as someone I deeply care for." Maria turned to me. "Sophie, can you confirm that your relationship is genuine?" I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts. When we first met, neither of us expected this. I was going through something personal and Damien was there for me in a way no one else was. What started as something unexpected grew into something real. I know people want to speculate, but I can say with all my heart that I love him. Damien's hand tightened on mine, and when I glanced at him, his eyes were filled with something I couldn't quite decipher. Gratitude, maybe, or hope. Maria smiled, seemingly satisfied with our responses. "It's not easy living under such scrutiny. How do you manage to stay grounded?" Damien chuckled lightly. "By focusing on each other and not the noise around us. We didn't plan this, but sometimes the best things come unexpectedly." Back at the penthouse, I exhaled heavily, the weight of the interview lifting off my shoulders. Damien came up behind me, his hands resting on my shoulders. "You were incredible," he murmured. I turned to face him. "I meant what I said, you know. About loving you." He cupped my face, his eyes shining with relief and affection. "I never thought I'd find this with you. I never thought I'd find this at all." I smiled, resting my head against his chest. Maybe we both needed a little chaos to find what really matters. 2 days later, Marcus showed up at the hotel, clearly agitated. I agreed to meet him in the lobby, not wanting to drag Damien into it. He looked disheveled, his eyes pleading. "Sophie, you have to believe me. I didn't think it would blow up like this. I didn't want to lose you." I felt a surge of anger and pity. "You lost me when you kissed Jenna, Marcus. You've made your choices and I've made mine." He ran his hands through his hair, frustration evident. "He's just using you. You don't belong in his world." I straightened, calm and resolute. "You don't get to decide where I belong. Damien values me, respects me. You never did. You never will." Before Marcus could respond, Damien appeared at my side, his hand protectively on my back. "It's time for you to leave," he said coldly. Marcus hesitated, looking between us, then finally stormed out, muttering under his breath. I turned to Damien, my heart still racing. "I'm sorry. He just doesn't know how to let go." Damien brushed a kiss over my forehead. "He's not worth your energy. Let him wallow in his own mistakes." That night, as we curled up on the couch, I couldn't help but feel lighter. The fake marriage, the pretending, it no longer mattered. What mattered was that Damien and I had found something real amid the chaos. As I drifted off to sleep in his arms, I realized that my life had taken an unexpected turn. I had lost the love I thought was forever, but I found something deeper, something stronger. Damien whispered into my hair, his voice gentle. "You don't have to worry anymore. I'm not going anywhere." I tightened my hold on him, a smile tugging at my lips. "Neither am I." The pretense had become reality, and what began as a way to protect ourselves from heartbreak had blossomed into a love neither of us had expected. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I was pretending anymore. I was right where I belonged. The